The concept to build Detroit's incinerator arose in the mid-1980s amid serious concerns about crowded and leaking landfills.
Detroit was particularly important because it was one of the earliest large facilities that was proposed, and to this day it's still the largest trash incinerator that has actually been built in the United States.
GIDRA was created to oversee aspects of solid waste management in Detroit, including the resource recovery facility. Former Detroit Mayor Coleman A. Young was a staunch supporter of incineration and touted its environmental benefits.
I began to believe that he had been misled as well, because he used to make statements. He thought this was some kind of environmental energy source. There's nothing environmental about burning trash.
A flurry of protesters descended on Detroit in an attempt to halt the incinerator's construction. Cries by Greenpeace and the Evergreen Alliance fell on deaf ears, and by 1989 the incinerator was in full operation.
I think that this was a very different time. It was when the public was not as aware of the kind of pollution you would get from a facility like that.
In the early 1990s, the State Department of Natural Resources forced the city to install costly pollution control equipment after tests showed high levels of mercury and dioxins blowing over the city. Detroit was facing a financial deficit, and the city was forced to sell the incinerator to private investors. The deal created huge bond debts that have plagued the city since that time.
We should be shouting hallelujah to get out from under that huge debt, which has cost the city not just millions, but $500 million.
In the current fiscal year, the cost to the residents of the city of Detroit for collection and disposal is over $110 million.
That facility generates a tremendous amount of revenue. It's got $30 million in steam sales, which is a viable portion of the downtown steam loop. A large portion of the buildings in downtown are on the steam loop.
In addition to the 2 billion pounds of steam per year generated by the facility, GIDRA also brings in revenue from its sale of electricity, metal recovery, and the purchase of waste from private haulers, some 400,000 tons of trash per year.
The problem is the facility is grossly oversized for the needs of the city of Detroit.
Capable of incinerating 4,000 tons of trash per day, the facility typically averages only around 2,800 tons per day. GIDRA pays heavy penalties if less than 780,000 tons of trash per year is consumed, and they have almost never been able to reach that goal. To supplement the trash produced by Detroit's shrinking population, GIDRA brings in trash from private haulers at an average rate of $15 per ton, while Detroiters pay at least $150 per ton, according to a study by the Ecology Center.
This facility is designed for household garbage. That's why you saw garbage bags and Charmin plastic tissue wrapper. That's how we control emissions. That's how we control what we're processing, by controlling the types of trash that come into the facility.
In addition, we recover a lot more metal out of our recycling than we did 3 years ago, which reduces what goes up the stack.
In terms of what's actually monitored, there's a relatively small number of emissions that they're actually required to monitor for. For example, I've estimated the Detroit incinerator puts out about 600,000 tons of CO2 a year.
What you see coming out of there is nothing more than water vapor. I think a lot of people in the vicinity or traveling up and down the highway see that, and they see it's intimidating.
What is that?
But all it is it's a heat exchanger, and all that's coming out of it is water vapor.
And that's the same thing up on top of the building there. You're getting the same effect up there, and when you look up at the stack, you're going to have the same effect.
Now, mind you, that we still operate well within our permitted limits, and it was amazing to me that when they talk about asthma rates, when you look at the asthma rates across the nation, the top 10 cities for asthma, none of them have a waste-to-energy facility.
And Anthony Adams says that this facility is safe. And he says it's safe despite the fact that it emits things like lead. But can anyone in the audience raise their hand if they've ever heard of a safe amount of lead in your diet?
You can't really make a one-to-one relationship of saying the emissions from this one facility resulted in this one person's asthma. But it's about contributing to the whole. And so it's, without a doubt, has contributed.
We have to deal with the alarmist issue of people saying that the facility is killing people versus to look at the empirical information to make a reasoned decision on what's the best long-term strategy for the city of Detroit. And we still are balancing the pros and cons of each approach.